In this tutorial, we're going to start dealing with variables. Now, variables are a fundamental concept in programming, and they're quite similar to variables that you've met in mathematics. So over here on my left, I've got my code. Now it's just set up like a basic HTML page. It's got my HTML tags, my head, my body, and my script. And all my code is going to happen between my script tags. Now to give myself a little bit more space, I'm just going to drag the sidebar over. And all my output is going to be presented here in the browser in the console. And all my output is going to be over here in the console in my browser, so that's why I've got that open. So just another shortcut before we begin. If you go Shift Alt F, Visual Studio Code will prettify your code. That means it will format it nicely. Okay, so we're going to create a variable. We're going to start really simple. We're just going to deal with mathematics, just like you've done in class. So we're going to create a variable. We're going to create a variable called x. So we're going to go let x equal 5. Now the semicolon is optional. In older browsers it's required, in new ones it's not required. I write the semicolon as a course of habit, but it is optional. So I can save that and nothing happens, as we would expect, because we just said create a variable. Now I can prove that variable exists, because over here if I type x and hit enter, it tells me that x equals 5, it gave me the value of it. And if I went say 7 or 8, if I went x again, it tells me it's 8. So that variable has been loaded into the memory of the browser, even though we can't see it. We can create another variable, say y. Let y equal 5. And in a similar fashion, we can see y equals 5. Now we can do some maths over here. We could go console log x plus y. So that should go 8 plus 5 and should print out the answer 13. And it does. We could also do subtraction. X minus y. And it gives me 3. We could do multiplication. X times y with the asterisk. And division. Console dot log x divided by y. Now you don't need to put the spaces in, I'm just putting them in to make it more readable. And there's my 4 answers: the addition, the subtraction, the multiplication, and the division. There's other maths operations we can do also. We can do powers. Console.log. Now we're going to do 8 to the power of 5. The way we do that is 8 star star to the power of 5. And that gives me 32,768. Now this looks great, and you remember that at this moment what that means. But if I come to you tomorrow and say, what does star star mean? Or how do I do a power of? You might have forgotten and not be able to answer those questions. You'll come to your code and go, what does that mean? So one way you can get yourself to easily remember things is to add things to your code called code comments. Now a code comment is just like a note written in the margin explaining something. Now we can put a comment in, and the computer ignores comments. It just skips over that line and pretends they doesn't exist, so they don't upset the running of the program. Now the way you do a comment in JavaScript, a single line comment, is to put 2 slashes in. And then you can write, the way that you do powers is star star. As if I save that, it will run again. But you'll notice that nothing changed over here. It didn't upset the program, there were no errors, everything ran just fine. Except this is good now because I've got a comment and I remember what this unusual syntax means. There's another mathematical operation that we could use. we could go back to primary school and remember when we did remainders. So you divide by a number and you get the remainder. So you could go console.log, get the remainder when 8 is divided by 5. So 8 percentage 5. So when you divide by 5, you should get 1 remainder 3. Cool. And we should put a comment in here. The way to do remainders is using the percentage. Now you might think, well, why are remainders important? Well, they might be really important. Because just say you're writing a program and you wanted it to do one thing on an even number and one thing on an odd number. Well, when you divide a number by 2, the remainder is going to be 0 or 1. So you could run a condition on that. So remainders actually can be quite important in maths and in programming also. Now variables don't just need to be for numbers. Variables can hold words also. So I could say let name equal John. And over here I could bring up the name and it tells me it is John. So it could hold a string or a collection of letters also. Now you'll notice that in my code I'm using the word let to create my variables. And that's good practice. This is just a side note. If you're looking up code on the internet for JavaScript, you might see occasionally var written to create a variable. So var person equals Adam. That is a legitimate way to create a variable. So I can bring up person over here and it shows me the value of Adam. But generally you're going to go with let. Okay? So this is just a side note. If you see var, you can generally substitute it for let. So that's our basic introduction to variables. We can see that they can hold letters in the terms of words. We can see they hold numbers. And we can do mathematical operations on those variables just like you would do in your maths class.